Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine the roar of the crowd, the electric atmosphere of a big football match. There's really nothing quite like it. But what happens when all that passion, that excitement, it kind of spills over, leads to chaos, security breaches, even hefty fines? That's exactly what we're diving into today. Our mission, like always, is to take a source today. It's a really interesting article from Capital Sport and just pull out the key insights, the important bits, giving you a shortcut to being properly informed. So today we're taking a deep dive into the, well, surprising story of stadium fan zones in Nairobi, Kenya, particularly how they relate to the ongoing African Nations Championships, CHAN 2025. Our main source is an article titled Why Fan Zones Should Be More Than About Keeping Ticketless Fans Away from Kasarani, and it was published like just 22 minutes ago from today, August 13th, 2025. So very fresh. The stage is set for this massive tournament, but here's where things get complicated. The Confederation of African Football, CAF, they've drastically cut Kasarani Stadium's capacity right down to just 27,000 seats. Why? Well, big security concerns, apparently. And this forced the Kenyan government to move fast, really fast. They designated 6 official fan zones across Nairobi. Sports Cabinet Secretary Salim Mvurya himself told the Football Kenya Federation, the FKF, to set up these zones, specifically to reduce crowding, and give a safe, organized space for all those fans without tickets, the legions of them.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating here is that these zones, they aren't just holding pens, right, for the overflow crowd. The article makes it pretty clear they're meant to be, well, a multifaceted solution. If you look at the bigger picture, these fan zones are designed to boost inclusivity, bring different city residents together, unite them through their shared love for the Harambee Stars. That's Kenya's national team, but it goes further than that. They also offer this unique chance for supporters of other teams to actually experience Nairobi's culture. The music, the food, that famous Kenyan hospitality. It seems like a proactive move, trying to dodge logistical nightmares for the organizers and, this is important, stop the financial hemorrhage. That's the term the article uses. Stop the FKF bleeding money from fines from, well, previous incidents.
When I first read about these fan zones, I just pictured, well, something basic, just screens in a field maybe. But hearing you talk about the cultural angle, it sounds much more ambitious. And talking specifics, the article actually maps out where these zones are. I was a bit surprised by some spots like Uhuru Park being one. Does the article hint at why these specific places were chosen, beyond just spreading them out geographically?
That's a really good question, because choosing places like Uhuru Park, Lucky Summer in Ningamongo, Dandora Stadium, Utali at Stima Club, Jacaranda Grounds, and Kibera DC Grounds, it doesn't seem random. The article kind of implies they were picked not just for size, but accessibility and their ability to pull people from different communities, really aiming for that inclusivity we were just talking about. Each one is supposed to have live match screenings, entertainment, food, and crucially, a controlled environment. So they're effectively stretching the stadium experience way beyond Kasarani itself, right into different Nairobi neighborhoods.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like a distributed crowd management strategy, almost. But here's the kicker, and it raises a big question for me. Is this all a bit too little, too late? I mean, setting up these fan zones was announced on the exact same day Kenya got hit with another fine from CF. Crashed 6.5 million, that's Kenyan shillings. That's a lot. And this penalty was for serious safety and security breaches during the Harambee Stars match against Morocco last Sunday. The article goes into detail, fans breaking through the perimeter wall at the stadium, which holds 48,000 people usually, just forcing their way in without tickets. The place was absolutely packed, people standing everywhere because all the seats were gone. So the timing, it feels very reactive, doesn't it? But looking at the article, does it suggest why it had to be reactive? Like, could they have seen this coming earlier, or was this genuinely an unforeseen problem spiraling?
Well, that's the heart of it, isn't it? The article doesn't explicitly say why it's so reactive, but it definitely paints a picture of a pattern emerging. This wasn't like a one-off incident last Sunday. It came after another breach the Sunday before that, during the opening match against the DRC, same place. And then it happened again on Thursday, just before the match against Angola. So cumulatively, Kenya's already racked up something like crayish 12 million in fines just since the tournament started. That sheer repetition, the escalating nature of it all, it suggests a situation that maybe got out of hand quickly, perhaps faster than they initially expected, forcing this immediate, very public response from the government. The hope, quite clearly, is that these fan zones will finally put a stop to the fines.
Wow. 12 million in fines.
Yeah.
When you hear that number, it really makes you pause. It's not just the money, is it? It's the message it sends about, well, the country's ability to host these big events. This isn't just a sports story anymore. It feels like it's about national reputation, too.
Absolutely. This whole situation, it points to a much bigger picture for Kenyan football. And yeah, for Kenya as a potential host for major international events down the line, the government is really pushing fans, urging them to use these official zones, support the Harambee Stars, but do it in an orderly way. Why the big push? Well, because making CDAN successful and avoiding more penalties, it's seen as critical. Critical to not messing up Kenya's chance to co-host AFCON 2027. That's a really big one, a much larger tournament. So the success of these fan zones now, it really depends on managing capacity well, promoting them effectively, and having strict security. It's a classic case study, really, how vital critical thinking about crowd dynamics and proactive planning are for hosting major sports events, and also, crucially, how even a measure that seems reactive, like these zones, can actually be framed as a pivot, a proactive strategy for future events like that AFCON 2027 bid.
That pivot idea is interesting. It makes you think. The article really emphasizes that these fan zones aren't just a temporary fix, a band-aid. They represent a strategic shift and maybe reveal something deeper, like how quickly and how comprehensively a country can be forced to adapt its whole sporting culture when faced with international rules, regulations, and serious financial consequences. It feels less about just building stuff and more about trying to cultivate a whole new way for fans to behave almost overnight.
It's a massive undertaking, trying to shift that culture so quickly. So we've taken a close look at Nairobi's new fan zones, a solution that's, well, ambitious in trying to broaden the fan experience, but also pretty clearly reactive in its timing, responding directly to those major security breaches and the financial penalties during Shan 2025. It's a really fascinating case study, I think, in how nations have to juggle, the intense passion people have for sports with the very strict demands of organizing international events.
So what does this all mean for you, our listener? As Kenya deals with these immediate challenges, the fan zones, the fines, and keeps its eyes on that bigger prize, co-hosting AFCON 2027, it leaves us with this thought to chew on. How do these kinds of measures born out of urgent need, not only fix current problems, but actually shape the long-term culture? The culture of how people watch sports, how events are managed, what new ideas, what innovations might we see pop up as countries try to balance that fan passion with the tough demands of global sporting standards? Keep that question in mind as you go about your day. Thanks for diving deep with us.